Good afternoon and welcome to the Public Works meeting for June the 8th. Today we have a fairly full agenda, so we're going to call the meeting to order and start with any declarations of conflict. Any declarations? I'm not seeing any, so we'll move on to an approval of our agenda. So I know, Your
Madam
Worship.
Chair, there is under new business, I don't have it here, but it's regarding parking in lieu, is it parking in lieu of space for a Queen Street business? Could I
Yep.
just put that up at the front because I have to leave soon?
Yes?
Is that all right?
Yep, so normally we don't add new items to new business, but I did give notice yesterday to our manager that we would be discussing this today, so we can move that up first, and then we'll proceed on.
So would 6A become,
That'll be even 6-1, and then we'll move into A,
Thank
B,
you.
C, D,
Thank
okay?
you.
So,
Chair,
yeah,
also, when can add something to new business for next meeting?
we'll do that during new business, so that we'll get notice for next meeting during new business.
I want to bring something up, I can bring it
Just
up
we'll
there.
add it up under new business, and then you can have it for next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay? So can I have an approval of our amended agenda? Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Tweel. All those in favor of that, great. Adoption of our minutes from April 26th. Moved by His Worship, seconded by Councillor Tweel. Thank you. So any business arising out of those minutes?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Tweel?
On page 8, the old Protestant burial grounds, I'm looking for an update as to what role the city's going to play with respect to removing the damage that was caused by Fiona. The city has provided maintenance in the last number of years, everything from grass cutting to tidying up the facility. The facility is now in dire straits because of all of the trees that were cut down, branches, debris. People are going up there in the cemetery, from what I'm given to understand by neighbors, and they're using it as a place to do drugs and other things that are happening. A lot of work has gone into this cemetery over the last number of years. It's probably one of the oldest cemeteries in this province. It's on our list where visitors come to see this cemetery from all over the world. And I think we need to put in place a strategy to help assist the board of directors. But for the cemetery to be in the state that it's in right now, I think we have a responsibility to help with the cleanup. Now, whatever methodology that is, whether it's through a provincial program or a program we had previously or whatever the case may be, the do-nothing approach is not going to work. It's simply not going to work. We have a responsibility, and the community is looking for our leadership in this regard, and we need to take a leadership role and help assist with cleaning up this historic Protestant burial grounds, where we have people in the First Attorney General, we have Fathers of Confederation that's buried there, and we've got to do something.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. I think we had discussion on this last time before we turned it over to the manager, where because it is privately run by a board of directors, there has been work done that the city's gone into support in past, but I think from what I understood after our last meeting, that was kind of, those were one-off times. It's not something that we have any kind of jurisdiction, considering it would be kind of private property, I would assume. I'm going to let you elaborate on this, Scott, but if we want to look at becoming involved in that, I think we'd have to look at developing a policy or something in order to be able to justify why, as a city, we're going in to do support work.
Madam Chair, just before Mr. Adams intervenes, I did meet with the group from the Old Protestant Cemetery or Old Protestant Burial Ground Committee, led by Audrey McMillan. Ray Stewart was there. Kent Heckbert was there who was with Holland College, is now with this group, and Mr. McNevin. They were a little surprised that this was brought up at a open meeting of council, a regular monthly meeting of council. They were asking that they should have been consulted first. So that's why I reached out to them.
And I'm going to just bring us right back here, because right now we're doing business arising out of the minutes, and I think this is more of a discussion that we want to proceed with to move forward, maybe get some more updates, and we could add it to our
Yeah.
next
So
meeting.
that's
or
why
talk
I
with-
think that it warrants more discussion.
Yeah.
And I have notes from that meeting. And Audrey McMillan is following up with ACOA to apply for Fiona funding.
Okay.
Similar to what other jurisdictions are doing. She's also reaching out to the province of Prince Edward Island, and they're also reaching into their own funds to make this happen. So for the councillor from the area, everything is proceeding with the limited capabilities they have as a volunteer committee. But they are very proud of this historic site. And the councillor from the area knows that this all started back in 2002 when the mayor of the day, George McDonald, initiated this project. And here we are 21 years later, very proud of what we've done so far. So there
maybe
will-
when there's a request and stuff, we can look at that,
I-
only because, again, we're talking about business arising
Yeah,
from the
so
minutes. and There's nothing really
wanna-
here that would.
If I could just put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Absolutely.
And sooner than later. I
Okay.
don't know if Mr. Adams wants to add anything, but thank you.
Kelsey will make a note of that.
No, we can just, we'll just add to next meeting and provide a summary of
Just,
the work we do.
Yeah, and perhaps you could provide some information to Scott based on your conversation you've already had.
They were planning to speak to Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Adams, our chief engineer, so.
Perfect.
She's going on a few different avenues, but they are very focused on remediating the fence. 90 feet of fence went down. They've already looked at the cost of the lumber, $2,300. They need someone to build it. I've given them names for other possibilities to cut the tree, to remove the tree. Branch manager is backed up by 6, maybe 9 months, but there are other operators out there, and I'm going to reach out to them. So there is a coordinated effort, and I know that my brother Richard has been asked to help out with the removal of any of the wood, any of the trunks with the equipment we have. So there is a concerted effort. But if people want to help out, reach out to Audrey McMillan. Reach out to Ray Stewart. Like, this is what we should be doing. Like, instead of sitting around here and saying that we should be doing this, should be doing that, there is a group out there, and these are committed volunteers that have been involved with this organization for the last 21 years. So
Thank you. And we are going to add this.
let's just
Yeah.
have a fuller discussion.
Okay, but
Yeah.
that's not on our agenda. No, we're not going to talk about the burial ground anymore unless there's
Just as
issues
a
from
point
arising
of
out of
order?
our minutes. There's no,
Just as a point of order?
Point of
So,
order.
when you
What's
said-
the point of order?
Well,
What's the
first,
po-
okay, you know what? We're moving on. Thank you very much. Can we add that to the
So-
next? No, no more talking about the Potters right now. We're going to keep going on the agenda. It was business arising from the minutes.
Oh.
There's going to be further discussion on the Protestant burial ground at our next meeting.
Right.
Audrey's going to reach out to you.
Mr. Adams, yes.
And then we will be able to come with some sort of an understanding of what they're looking for as far as city support at that time.
But again, I stress the point, Madam Chair, if you want to help out, reach out to them. They want help. So if there are people in this room that are saying we have to do something, reach out and say, listen, I can help out too. That's what my brother
Okay.
has done.
All right.
Yes, we'll help out.
Thank you.
okay, so who called the meeting?
Okay, you guys can
did.
have this conversation
Yeah.
after. Thank you very much. We're moving on.
And I wasn't notified as
Number
counsel
one.
for the ward.
Number one, we're going to
I didn't
talk
call
about,
it.
thank you. Both of you can stop, thanks. Number one, sidewalk business from Frank McCachran. We had another request. We've already discussed this. We had decided as a committee at that point, based on staff recommendation, to defer until our parking strategy was completed and we could look at the whole downtown kind of requests in these areas. I've asked Scott to kind of be prepared today because we know with our patios and with our policies and our procedures around that, that things are still in limbo right now. What he's requesting is a one-year pilot opportunity to try to run his business on Queen Street in this one parking spot. He's also requesting a parking spot for the city to place a bike rack. A couple things before we start talking about this is it's really confusing within our own. When I looked at the Public Works terms of reference last night, there's nowhere in our terms of reference where we are talking about parking spaces or parking lots. I know Public Works has always been involved because it's considered public right-of-way when it comes to talking about public parking spots, but planning does private property, police has a part in this, and then Public Works signs off on this. And it's really not very clear. I don't know, it's not clear to me, so I don't know how it would be clear to any residents on where the responsibility lies when these decisions come. So, his request, we can certainly have discussion. Do we want to move this to council for discussion for a one-year pilot? He wants a bike rack in parking spot 6440. I do understand that our environment sustainability sometimes cost share with businesses in downtown. I don't think, do we usually put bike racks around? I think that was a cost share program with environment sustainability.
That's
And I
correct.
know we just approved a $600 parking spot fee for patios and stuff, so there's some details that would have to be worked out, but is it something the committee's willing at looking at for a one-year pilot, and is this the actual proper committee for this to come through?
There's two other items that we shouldn't discuss as well if we want to go further down this road, is what type of barrier system are they going to install around the parking stalls? Because each deck has to have some type of, their deck, so there's railings and all that. Because if you don't put something like that in, it becomes a control issue in terms of parking. And then lastly, we have to remember the farmers market is also every Sunday. DCI has been quite adamant, as these are all their members. They do not want to see more parking being lost as a result of further expanding the patio program or extending storefronts, which is what this would be doing. Because that impacts the number of vendors that they can have as part of their weekly market on Sundays. So there's a few of those things as well that, and that's why we recommended to delay, because there are a number of things that need to be looked at. Just to go out and take two spots away, it's a bit of a challenge. And it makes it more challenging for staff to do their work as well, because we have had this request from other storefronts over the years, and I apologize, we don't have the bylaw enforcement officer here, as he has received these requests. A number of these requests over the years, I don't know that number and how frequently it does happen, but I know he has received some, and they have been denied to extend storefronts to parking spots, because overall the parking benefits all the business owners in that area, not just the individual that is fronted on them. There are some businesses that are on the second and third floor that require visitors, and that's what that parking's there for them. So these are just a number of issues that we see. We just want to give you all the information before making a recommendation to move forward with this.
Just, excuse me, Chair, just, Scott, you referenced two. I understood, I talked with him earlier this afternoon, and just one, I think
He's looking for one parking spot for his bikes, and he's looking for one parking spot, from what I understand in the email, for a bike rack.
We have bike racks around the city. We already have installed. So I'm agreeing with Councillor McAleer. He's asked for one. That's what we're looking at, one. Yeah, well, he can say that we should put one up there, but for his storefront, it's one.
He's looking for 6440 and 6441.
Yeah, but where's 6440? Is that in front of his shop?
I'm assuming.
Okay,
And sit
so
right
that's-
beside it, he's wanting a bike rack.
Yeah, but again, we can start off with one that would extend from his office. Or from
But I
his
don't even
business.
think this is the right committee. And CEO Mohammed, I don't know if you feel comfortable chiming in and helping me navigate this. Is this the right committee for discussion on the use of that parking spot for purpose of?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think what this comes down to is we need a resolution here. It needs to come through a committee. So if we raise it here and we'll try and deal with this as fast as we can, instead of, trying to flip it to other areas. We will walk out of here today, and we will find the information, and we will come back with the resolution that needs to happen.
And this would still have to go to council for final approval, would it, or does it get to just stick at committee level?
It goes to council.
Okay.
It's a patio or slash extension to a business that operate or sell and rent bikes.
So is there any questions from our committee member before we make any kind of recommendations? Thank you, CAO Mohammed.
No, again, Madam Chair, just repeating, I came from talking to him about 45 minutes ago, and anyway, he did confirm it's one spot, 6440, I think. It even took a picture of the meter, I think. It's just the one spot.
I would support what Councillor McAleer is saying, that we go with the one spot, that we put that back to the department and ask if we can make this work. And again, I would like just to say about this, if we talk about parking, Madam Chair, there are many home businesses around this city that take in, let's say, for example, childcare, and there are times when childcare operators are affected by the neighbors in their, or the cars in their neighborhood, because neighbors or visitors are parking all over the place. So if we're extending this kind of, goodwill, well, we have to think about all our operators, whether they're in the downtown or they're in the neighborhoods using their home as a home occupation. So I think that, we should be respectful of not just the downtown, but all those operators that are trying to make a dollar or make a living out of what they're doing from their home or from their place of business in the downtown. So I'm supporting, if Councillor McAleer is putting that on the table, I would second his resolution to go with one spot.
I don't think we got to the resolution stage, but we will get there. And I'm just wondering if we did a one-year pilot. Scott, when are you planning to run, when is the study on the parking study strategy supposed to start?
We're hoping to get that off the ground within the coming weeks.
Okay, so this, if council approves a one-year pilot for this opportunity, then that information should be gathered and collected prior to next season, maybe?
I would hope so, yeah.
Okay, and Councillor Twill, do you have something you'd want to ask?
Yeah, just reading the email from last night. Scott, did you issue approval for a food truck? He referenced a food truck around the corner there in front of the Confederation Center. Did you issue approval for that?
So all those approvals, food or street patios, come through the police. That's all through their bylaw.
So that went through police.
That's correct. And I do have information on that one. That there are 3 or 4 spots around the city that are previously approved in the bylaw. And that spot used to be beside Victoria Row, but is now moved up to the corner. So there will be no food truck on the corner of by Victoria Row there on Queen Street, because it's going to be designated a wheelchair accessible spot.
Okay, so again, that wasn't issued through this department, it was issued through the police department.
That's correct. That's their bylaw.
And that did take up a parking spot.
But it was always taken up one spot, so it's there's no plus or minus.
I understand
it's a
that.
moving space.
I read the gentleman's email. I'm trying to understand it. Okay, so when this was brought up to this committee back a couple of months ago, you referenced a letter from the Downtown Business Association, and you said at the time you wanted to put everything on hold to do a review and an evaluation. And at that time, I asked you if there was any requests that come in, and you said yes. And I think the request come in from Mr. McCachran. You didn't indicate at that time that Mr. McCachran wanted either 1 or 2 spaces out in front of his place, and
That's correct. That was the report last month. That is correct. Yeah.
Last month or the month before that, I'm not sure. But anyway, I did have a chance to talk to Mr. McCachran as well. And considering that the business that he's in, less dependency on vehicle traffic, more on cycling and the type of business that he's in, I think it would be advantageous to approve this and hopefully try to change the culture and have less dependency on vehicles and more dependency on walking and cycling and whatever the case may be. So it's going to be interesting to see your evaluation of how that takes place in conjunction with the other departments, whether it be the police department, environment, sustainability, whatever the case may be.
I think there's definitely work to be done to get this, so we don't have to cross-section into 3 different departments when people are trying to figure out where we're going to put, like, one department could probably take the responsibility for patios or parking lots or parking spots or whatever. So I know that there will be conditions, even with this pilot. Scott, there will be the charge that goes when you take up a parking spot. There will be the barrier that you spoke about, required for safety. And whatever else you think's included, but if you, I'm hearing that this committee's endorsing, supporting the 1-year pilot for the business, and if it has to go through another committee in order to get to council, but I know an e-bike rental business would be based on tourism, and we're moving into June, so it would have to be something that we could move fairly quickly in order for him to be able to utilize this for business.
Do you want to put a resolution on the floor? Let's do it.
I would put that resolution on the floor for 1-year pilot for the Frank McCacken.
It's, is it Rising Tides? Rising Tides cycle.
So the resolutions to explore a 1-year pilot with the conditions that indicated by the manager and the requirements that we follow. And seconded, but first put on by Councillor McAleer, seconded by His Worship. Everybody in favor of that
Now,
moving?
just again, the resolution is now on the floor.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I just want to speak. I want to speak.
Oh, you can't. Okay, we can't, we'll have to have a special meeting in order to do that,
Right,
because we can't
so-
put a resolution without a staff
But
recommendation.
this resolution or this request from Councillor McAleer and myself is to get the information to come back to this committee.
Okay.
And to forward it on to whatever other committee it requires to address. But again, I want to emphasize that we have to look at parking as a global situation, that we got businesses in the downtown, businesses outside of the downtown, home occupation, businesses that are using parking spaces that need these parking spaces to do business. So Scott, the faster, the quicker that we get this done, I think it'll open up some other possibilities for addressing this issue of parking. And as Councillor Twill said, we have to get away from a car-driven mentality and look more at cycling, walking, and everything else that gets us from point A to point B. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I'm going to guess that the report that we already saw, that came to council, came to our committee, which was to defer this for a year. I'm not sure if that would even change based on the recommendation. So when we talk about, I think we could look at this as a second glance to something that we've already discussed too, rather than having to go back and start all over again. But we'll go there, and if, Scott, you could let me know if we could have a special meeting before the next special meeting, and then we'll be...
Chair, when we discussed there a couple of months ago, it wasn't a report, it was just a recommendation. There was no report. We discussed it verbally here at the committee level. Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott. We discussed it verbally, and, you referenced the letter from the Downtown Business Association, and they recommended...
April 26th meeting is
Yeah.
when the report, there's, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, there was
Okay,
definitely
okay.
a
There was a
report.
report.
So that's what I'm
But
meaning,
the recommendation was...
to defer for a year.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that came from the Downtown Business Association.
That came from
That came from
Mr.
staff.
Adams.
Staff?
Yes.
Yeah.
In collaboration with the downtown, what did the letter say from the Downtown Business Association?
I would have to get you a copy to see the full thing, but it was in that report as well, that you would have a copy as well in your
I know
email.
you referenced
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it'd be all in that thing, but they were not in support of it.
That report was emailed to us, right?
It
No,
would,
but-
yeah.
but everything's emailed to
That's
us.
correct. You would have a
Okay,
copy
good.
of the report package
Thank you,
from
Mr.
April. That's
Thank
correct.
you, Mr. Adams.
And Chair, just because this meeting was delayed, we do have another committee meeting for our June month coming up in about a couple weeks. I can check, so we can discuss later if that's soon enough, or we need to look at a special meeting.
Thank you, Scott. Okay.
So we can't pass a motion here today?
Well, that's what I would have thought, because we already had a report. We're just going back to have a second look at our report, but I guess according to,
Why can't we?
You don't have anything to support what's going to council if you make a resolution today.
it would be going against staff's former report though, wouldn't it? That the committee just isn't going to support the original since we already seen the report
Yeah.
from staff,
That's right. So I think,
as part of the April 26th meeting, and at that time, we decided to defer it, and there was no further discussion, and he's asked that to be reconsidered. So that's how it led to discussion today. But I'm wondering it's probably not going to change a whole lot from the staff recommendation that'll come to our committee, which would be to defer it until we have more time. And it would be council overturning the staff's recommendation to bring that to council. Confusing.
You need, the procedural bylaw says that any motion, resolution has to be considered by a committee before it goes to council. So technically, yes, you can have a resolution that you create today and it goes to council. But what has to happen in between is some sort of report to go along with it to explain how you got from there to there. Really.
So the original report, I don't believe council saw that, or maybe they did, it was in the package. But there was no discussion at the council floor on it, really. Nobody had any discussion because we had said we recommended deferral for a year. So would you use that same report, or do you have to do a new report? Okay, so a new report. Perfect. Okay, we'll leave it at that,
Yeah,
and
then
we'll
have a
get there.
special meeting.
If we need a special meeting,
thank
or
you.
in the 2 weeks. Yep, thank you. Okay, thank you. Sorry for all that confusion.
No, that's good.
Tells us where we have some stuff to tighten up. Okay, number A, an update on our West Royalty Master Plan.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. So yes, this is the follow-up to everything that has taken place since the start of the West Royalty Master Plan. We did one, so we had a public meeting back in 2021, I believe, or 2022. I'm not seeing the date at the time right now. That was held at the Convent Center. Had a number of residents concerned about traffic through Sherwood development, or through Sherwood community, and just I think people were concerned about just the. They just didn't like the change in the neighborhood it's always been green space or farm field, and now it's being residential. So some of the things we took back from that report was looking at how can we deter drivers from trying to go onto Ash in through Sherwood. And so we have included a complete intersection upgrade as part of the master plan at where Spencer would meet Mount Ever Road, which would not allow anyone to enter Ash Drive from Spencer Drive, or anyone that is on Mount Ever Road heading southbound, so you're coming from the bypass towards downtown. It would only be a right in for folks to get into Ash Drive. The other big change is if you're coming out of Ash Drive, you can go all three directions. So if you're coming out of Ash, there's no impact to your travel. If you're trying to get to Ash, you have to be coming northbound on Mount Ever Road. So that was the big change that we put in following the public meeting. We also touched base a little bit about active transportation. But again, the active transportation, it runs parallel to any road network that we put in there. So we wanted to make sure that was highlighted in the report, which is now there. And also part of that meeting, I think there was some misunderstanding internally about if there would be another public meeting or how we would proceed beyond this point. So we thought, because there was that confusion on how this report gets in front of council for one final review and acceptance, bringing forward a resolution for that, we said, okay, let's take advantage of our City Hall website that we have to get public feedback. So we did a media blitz. We did an ad in The Guardian a couple weekends. There's paid sponsorships as well, I believe. So it was out there on media, on all social media channels for the city as well. We received, from that feedback, we received 17 responses, and there's kind of four main criteria. Again, just the whole, the concern about increasing traffic in area. And that's the need for the plan. We know that this area is going to develop. And there's only two ways to handle that traffic. Either A, a bunch of driveways out to Mount Ever Road, which is just not, it's not the way to handle traffic. You'd be putting a lot of traffic, a lot of pressure on Mount Ever Road, and become a very serious concern. So that's the need for the plan on how we control and manage that traffic and get people to and from where they're trying to get to. So that's why this plan's here and why we keep working or try to. That's why we bring it forward and get accepted before all that development gets approved in that area. Excuse me. The other one was the increase in traffic volumes on the neighborhood of Sherwood. Again, we've addressed that with the adjustment to Ash Drive intersection. And when you look at, there's really, other than doing that, there's not much more you can do. But again, we don't expect any increase in traffic on Ash Drive. It's going to actually be reduced now because you can't access Ash Drive. So folks are not going to be cutting through Sherwood just because it's not an appealing way to get between Mount River Road and Brackley Point Road. And there's not a lot of A to B points that people are trying to get to between those two locations. So all the models are showing that we don't see any increase in traffic other than your typical year-over-year increase just because of that's how traffic volumes grow every year. The other one, and then basically the other ones are about talking about the just more specific things to the final design and plan, final design work when we get down to the construction phase, which we're working on designs right now. These things would not be so much, we wouldn't include them in a plan. The master plan is solely for identifying where that road network is going to be and how we handle that traffic. Those more detailed comments will be looked at and included part of the design phase. And then we also, and this is another reason why we wanted to do a more, not a public open house. We wanted to do more of a emails and receive feedback by that because we did receive several comments and support, which is something you don't see, especially in a setting where people get up in front of a microphone. I know some people are afraid to speak up sometimes when they know that most of the crowd there is opposed to a project. So we wanted to highlight that as well. There was several comments that we received as support, and that they understand why we're trying to do this, and they like the fact that we're trying to plan ahead versus trying to catch up. So from that feedback, we've done kind of two major things, or the two, I guess, amendments to the plan. Lastly, we know St. Dunstan's owns a lot of the undeveloped land, mostly to the northwest corridor there. Thank you. That's a commercial. It's likely going to be commercial at some point in time. We don't think it's going to be residential. When you get commercial, it's really hard to figure out a road network in there until you know what's going in there. So what we put in the plan, it's just dash lines, and there's a note in there saying that, this final road network in this area will be determined once we know what that development's going to be. We don't really know what's going to be there. Secondly, just added again some language about the inclusion of active transportation and as well as transit as well in the plan, making sure that those two items are taken into consideration when we finalize our plan as well for construction. And so based on that, we are recommending to move forward to council for final acceptance of the plan so that we can move forward and finalize. There's a couple of developers in the area that are waiting to develop, and we'd like to be able to let them be able to present to the public and their plans reflect the master traffic plan at the end of the day.
Thank you, Scott.
Chair?
Councillor Twill.
Yeah. As you know, Scott, there's been a lot of discussion in the community about the West Royalty Commercial Plan traffic study. There's confusion regarding the title of this report because it refers to West Royalty and it has a tremendous impact and effect on the people living in Sherwood. So there's a bit of a disconnect there when you refer to as West Royalty. Sherwood is not West Royalty and West Royalty is not Sherwood. Secondly, I think it was on the CBC website where the residents on Ash Drive had expressed their major concerns regarding this four-lane intersection. And, you pointed out that there's no traffic going to go on to Ash Drive. Well, I don't know if you can actually guarantee that, There's concerns too about traffic, not just in Ash Drive, but Oak Drive, Pine Drive. I've gotten emails. I've sent the emails out to City Hall. You've gotten them. And I know you don't think it's advantageous to have a public meeting or community meeting or an open house. I respect your position as the Public Works Manager. I really do, Scott, and your credentials, but the community needs information. And I would suggest that we have one of the three, either a community meeting, a public meeting, or an open house. A lot of seniors, for example, don't have access to internet. They don't, they're not, social media savvy. They rely on getting information from their neighbors. Sometimes the information's accurate, sometimes it's not accurate. There's confusion. And when you consider the impact and effect that this traffic study is going to have to the residents that live in Mount Edward Road, I hear it all the time. They're very, very concerned about the increase on Mount Edward Road. Parts of the road is 40 kilometers, parts of the road is 50 kilometers. They're forever, complaining about heavy truck traffic on the road when there's signage on the road where there's not supposed to be heavy truck traffic, but nonetheless, they still commute up and down Mount Edward Road. They don't use the bypass. I really believe there should be some form of public consultation with the community. Like you said, it's been a couple of years now since we had that meeting at the Confederation Center of the Arts. I attended that meeting, and as you know, there was a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. We've got a new Public Works Committee. Things have changed. I think we need to go the extra mile and have one of the three, either a community meeting, public meeting, or an open house.
Yep. Okay.
And it should be held in the community so that the people have an opportunity to come and ask the consultants and yourself as a manager, ask questions so they can get that information. They need information. They really do, Scott. They need information. And when you're pouring all that traffic on the Mount Edward Road, and I understand, a lot of that's going to happen with more construction, more apartment buildings, more commercialism, all that kind of stuff. And the other thing I wanted to mention is we need a strategy to encourage traffic that's coming from Capitol Drive and University Avenue to start using the bypass. We need a strategy for them to use the bypass as opposed to commuting up Spencer Drive and then jigging up to Towers Road or whatever the case may be. We need to embark upon a strategy. That's why the bypass was built, to handle all that overload traffic instead of cutting through neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Okay.
Madam Chair, could I just ask if all councillors read the report? West Royalty Commercial Area, did you read the report?
I got it right here.
Yeah. Okay, if you read the report, okay, it talks about a designated area. That's the area that lies between Mount Edward Road and Malpeck Road. And on the northern boundary, it's the arterial highway. Then it's going to connect with Irwin Drive. This plan is not just about one section of the city. It's about the West Royalty is where this covers. And to go to Sherwood, yes, there's going to be some infiltration. But I think the chief engineer has explained to us that there will be a mechanism set up that doesn't allow through traffic from Spencer to Ash. It'll be right in, right out. But the point is that I have an email here from a resident on Michelle Crescent. And the resident says, speaking with neighbors on Michelle Crescent, and I'm sure others living in Towers Road feel the same way. We are gravely concerned about additional traffic we will be subject to on Towers Road if this proposal is approved without resolving the traffic issue on Towers Road. It is our opinion that that this proposal should only be approved conditionally with the construction and completion of Spencer Drive connecting with Mount Edward Road. During the election, folks coming to my door assured us that this extension issue would be addressed. That's what we're doing. We're trying to address the issue. So the people that live, and as this person said, right now, the current situation that residents of Michelle Crescent have to wait at times 4 or more light changes to access our homes because of the backup of traffic on Towers Road. Like, this is a greater issue
Yeah.
than just talking about one section. We are talking about a plan. You have to read it. There's a lot of data in here.
And it falls
to
under
think-
our official plan too, that we've already through, I mean, I can't
Yeah.
ask anybody to speak, but it's all going to be incorporated. We know that development's happening and we have to look at safety and we have to look at flow.
Right. And Madam Chair, the meeting that took place, and that was, I believe, in 2021, and it was COVID days, and I do not believe we had the engineer, or
Yes, we did.
yes, the engineer, yourself, and the Chair of Public Works were on the stage, right? And that was the public meeting. So we've had the public meeting. Yes, I would appreciate that we do an open house with stations to explain how this intersection that our chief engineer is proposing, that when it meets up to Mount Edward Road, you cannot extend Spencer onto Ash. That's all people want, but it's the people that live in Towers Road. I knocked on those doors.
Okay.
And they said,
That's-
guys, you have to fix this issue. Spence, so you have different views, different opinions out there. It's our job to put them all in a basket or put them together and find the best solution. The engineer, or chief engineer, is saying, we have to start the project.
So what
Correct?
we have to discuss, we're not right now discussing if we're
Well-
going to approve this. We're discussing is, he's asking right now is that we move this to council for acceptance based on the fact that it's been on charlottetowncityhall.ca, based on the fact that they have social media, they've promoted through social media, they've promoted through The Guardian, and they've taken what they heard at the original public meeting, which is all we were required to do, and made adjustments and changes. What I'm hearing is the mayor would like to see, and Councillor Tweel would like to see, is an opportunity for people who would like to come and just see what those changes are, come in to somewhere. We've done that when we're making major changes, to have an opportunity where they could come in and see the plan and ask questions if they wanted to. Is that what I'm hearing from
Yes,
the
and
committee?
Madam Chair, if I go to capital projects update, June 5th, Spencer Drive extension, EXP's doing it, right? 50% is done.
Keeping in mind, though, that they're wanting to get this to council for approval because we do have developers that are waiting to develop. So this would have to be something that would roll out fairly quickly if we are going to do that. Yes, you go ahead and speak to that, sorry.
So there's a couple things just to note. So what I think what should happen is acceptance of the plan, and then there's always the final approval of the construction itself. So I would hate to see us delay the development in this area, if that's council wishes. Of course, we would appreciate, respect that, of course. But I do know one individual developer actually, they have federal funding for low-income housing in this area, and if they don't break ground and have a foundation in by the fall, they lose their funding. And so there's some funding streams that I believe both developers are trying to get, and if they can't get a shovel in the ground this year, they'll lose that federal funding. So I guess there's kind of two things that can happen, and it's up to council, but my recommendation would be take the plan as is to council for acceptance, and then planning then can refer to that plan for the private development. The piece on Manor Road, we can always go to a public meeting as we finalize our design, because once I have the detailed design, then you'll be able to see the detail. Right now with the plan, it doesn't show that detail. That again is the small, it's the detailed design work that we're working on to make that happen.
So there are other steps. There will be other opportunity where residents are going to have an opportunity to see kind of the final design.
If that's the wishes of the council, yeah, and then yes, we can make sure that happens sometime this year. Just keep in mind, we will like to get it, because it is in our budget, like to get it tendered out soon. I'm not sure what the date is. And the challenge with that is we try to avoid public meetings in the summer months because a lot of people are not home. That's also something. But we can still have it. And again, we're also going to do an FAQ following this because we're a lot of residents, we hadn't responded to each individual email yet because a lot of the questions are the same or same themes. So we do have a FAQ page ready to go that will go out via email to every email address. And it will be available on our website. And if anyone would like copies, we'll circulate copy to all the committee here as well. So you can print and share it with any resident that does
has
speak with you
questions.
as well.
Perfect. So it looks like right now you're looking for someone to put on a resolution to move this to council to accept the plan.
That's correct.
Do I have anyone that will get the resolution to the floor? Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, I'd move that resolution.
Okay, and seconded by your worship?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I have a question.
you can ask a question, yeah, but then we'll have a vote.
You know, reference was made to the gentleman. I got that email as well. I also knocked on doors on Mount Edward Road. And a lot of the residents on Mount Edward Road that have no safe pedestrian walkway, no sidewalk, are at I would suggest, in a dangerous situation. They can't even get a crosswalk to cross Mount Edward Road, and now we're going to put more traffic on Mount Edward Road without doing our due diligence and, you know, not even installing a sidewalk or an transportation pathway. I know that I've received continuously over a 4-year period major concerns about more additional traffic on Mount Edward Road. So to suggest that, well, we just can't look at things, you know, like Sherwood, for example, it's not just, I'll reiterate, it's not just Ash Drive, it's Mount Edward Road, it's Oak Drive, it's Pine Drive, it's in that whole general area. People are very, very concerned about the increase in traffic and how that traffic, where's that traffic going to go? And the reason why I suggested either a community meeting or a public meeting or an open house is to give the residents information. I see no harm in wanting to give the residents information. A lot of, I'll say it again, a lot of seniors don't have access to, and other demographics don't have access to social media, internet, or whatever you want to call it. And I just thought it'd be respectful to give the residents, give them the information, because it's been 2 years since that public meeting was held at the Confederation Center. And there was a lot of major concerns that were raised at that meeting. I mean, it was speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker. So anyway.
Okay, we have, Madam Chair, we have agreed, I think that the chief engineer said we will look at an open house when we have the plans. And the plans are 50% complete, right, through EXP. So the plans will show what he's talking about, that when you come off Spencer Drive, there is no way to enter Ash Drive unless you right out and then come back, well, turn right in the middle of Mount Edward Road
Do a
and go up
U-turn.
Ash Drive. I don't know how many people will be doing that. But my point is, I believe we've agreed, I think Councillor McAleer has agreed, that we'll have an open house. We've had the public meeting.
And the
Now-
traffic's there already. It's just what we're trying to do by the sounds of it is move it so that it's not 4 lights at Towers Road to get into your house for supper.
And Madam Chair, to your credit, you're the one that pushed for the active transportation pathway. No.
Point of order. We're moving on. Okay, there's a resolution on-
Going
no.
down
Sick and
Towers
tired of
Road.
your politics.
Okay, both
no,
of you
no, what?
guys.
Going down
Sick and
Towers
tired of
Road.
your
Enough.
No.
I'm
That's all
going
it
to,
is.
hey, the
It's
meeting's going to
Towers
be
Road
shut down in
politics.
4 seconds.
No, there's no place for that here in the
Enough.
chamber.
No, you are playing
there's no
politics.
cheap
What
place
do
for
I
that
say?
here in the chamber, and I'm sick and tired of it.
I'm
Stop
gonna-
playing your
No,
politics.
you are.
You were.
Towers Road was your,
Oh, my
thank for
goodness.
your
No,
lead.
You know what? We're not
And-
talking anymore right
and
now.
what I'm
about
gonna
it,
say,
and
Madam
I'm-
Chair-
No,
Madam
Who
Chair-
stood up, meeting after meeting after meeting, pushing the
I'm going
active
to call this
transportation
meeting in
pathway?
a minute,
Thank you,
and
Madam
it'll
Chair.
be
No.
ending.
Thank
and
you, Madam
it'll
Chair.
be
cheap
because
shot.
Thank you,
we
Madam
won't be
Chair.
putting up with
I'm
this.
sick and tired of
Both
it.
of you is
I'm
enough.
sick and tired of
I
his
said
cheap
that's
shot.
enough.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I am chairing this meeting,
Yeah.
and I am in charge of this meeting, and you're going to respect this chamber
Yeah.
and me as
Yeah.
the chair.
Yeah.
Both of you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Again, Madam Chair, just want to assure you that there is a sidewalk going up Mount Edward Road all the way from.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah,
We're going to go
all-
back to the
all the way
resolution that's
from
on the
Longworth
floor. We've had a
Avenue
resolution that's been
and Mount
put on the
Edward Road
floor. We've had a seconder. I
beyond
need to
to-
know who's in favor of moving this resolution to council for acceptance of the plan.
I am.
Are you in favor, Councillor McAleer? Councillor Twill?
We're going to do that before the open house or public meeting?
Yeah, this would be going on to accept the plan.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, the vote's 2-1. Thank you very much.
Could I get that recorded too, Madam Chair? Thank you.
The vote's 2-1. Thank you very much. I would ask, moving forward, that we try to keep quorum, though, in here, because we have a lot of important things to discuss, and we are being watched by the residents of the city. We're here to represent them and to be professional and respectful of each other.
Yep.
and
I
to
was
do
only
city
giving credit where it was
business.
due. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to
Credit-
move on to
credits.
street resurfacing. And I know we added this because we talked last committee meeting about increasing some of our budget in order to, when we had the presentation on our worst is first in the city, to look at how we can kind of get ahead, because when we only budget so much to get so much done, by the time we get back, it's in 4 years, those streets that we've done are back to being worst again. So we're looking at trying to get some extra funding in for the street resurfacing. And Scott, if you could kind of present what you have proposed, and then maybe we'll agree.
Certainly. So there's kind of two things on the table here with this proposal. So as of right now in the capital budget, we have approximately $400,000 remaining. So the first table there, you'll see 4 streets. Those are the next 4 streets on the worst first street rating system. That would we would have enough funds remaining in the account to do those 4. Now, there was also the question last time, what if we look at augmenting or adding additional funds? So one thing we looked at our capital budget, we're trying to not ask for additional funding this year under the capital program, because our program is already a well-funded program for all our repair or all our work. And we know that this year, just our University Avenue project, although we're anticipating getting some work done this year, we just don't see us being able to spend the entire value of that this year. It's a very complex project, a lot of utilities that we're trying to work through or work with right now, and it is just timing-wise, we don't think we're going to get a large volume of work done this year. So we think we're going to have some funding available under that program, or will be underspent under that project this year. So what we said was, okay, let's look at what would, if we added approximately $700,000 from that program, or sorry, $600,000 from that program to street resurfacing, and they're all under the same category. They're both under street repairs or road infrastructure. I forget the category, so it's all under the same thing. So it's all relatable. And so if we had approximately $1 million, we would add these additional streets to the 4 that you already saw. So we're recommending, as a staff, are recommending to add these additional streets and issue a third tender here in the next couple of weeks for approximately $1 million worth of work to be able to resurface this many more streets this summer.
So,
That
Madam Chair.
looks good. Yes, Your
I'm
Worship.
just looking at the capital budget. Pownell Street structural rehabilitation, that is for the Pownell Parkade,
That's correct. Just some needs some structural repair work.
and it's at 2.5 million,
Yep, that's correct.
and you have an engineering study to,
Yes,
and we're starting that this year.
yes, we intend to start that this year.
So the other 700,000, I'm just looking here on page 24-1, Public Works Projects. Where did you say you were taking it from? Street resurfacing,
So you see where street resurfacing, it's under the heading road.
street, 3.5 million?
Yeah. So that's our existing street resurfacing budget. So
Yeah.
we have a
2
remaining,
tenders already went,
correct, and we have $400,000 approximately remaining in that account.
yes?
Excuse me. And then we would transfer $600,000 from the University Avenue upgrade plan to street resurfacing, which is in the same category.
So University Avenue is at 5.5 million.
So we're not even really looking for extra money. We're looking to move money.
We're just
Correct.
transferring.
Correct.
That's great.
That's what we're recommending. We wanted to be conscious of our capital budget this year, of course. And again, we're quite confident we're not going to be able to spend all that money this year.
Just one more question, Madam Chair. So for the first 2 tenders, we had 1.4 million?
I can't remember each of them, but they
It was approximately,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just asking if we can, instead of adding 600, if we could add 800, like shift 800 from University Avenue.
We can do whatever this committee wishes. If we want to do if we want to try to get each tender roughly equal around
Yeah,
1
that's
to
what I'm looking at.
1.4, that we would be likely comfortable shifting it up to 800,000 from that account and adding an additional couple additional streets. to
So
it.
again, this is just a supplementary to my last question, is that, Mr. Adams, through the chair to the manager, you designated, I think, how many streets do you have in those two tenders? About
I
20?
believe 20. So that's misconception too. Is sections of road. So it's not
Yeah.
a true streets because
Okay.
every street's different.
Okay.
It's sections of road. 29
Right.
sections. That's correct.
So
And
all I'm
approximately
asking for is a
9
similar-
kilometers.
Tender number 3, tender number 3 would be similar to tender number 1 and 2.
Sure. We can do that. And I don't believe we have to take this to council. We're just looking for a recommendation at this time from committee to say, yes, that's the direction we would like to go. We will get that tender ready and go out, bring that back to committee to review those bids. And then
We don't
part
have
of-
to go to council when we're moving that kind of money?
Then we would ask for council at that time, once the tenders have come in and the resolution is present.
Oh, okay.
We would ask for that transfer of money with that resolution at that point in time.
Okay, as long as we're following the process, that's good. Counselor Twill, your button's on?
Yes, as was stated here at the last council meeting, or the last committee meeting, that there was a suggestion that we would try to ensure progress was made in every ward.
No, we did not talk about progress in every ward. We talked about looking at streets that were identified as worse
Yeah, but-
first. Not based on ward, based on the city.
No, but, I mean, I do recall bringing that up.
You did, yes,
Yeah,
but we
yeah, I
also
know.
have to
But
look at,
did we arrive at a final conclusion that we weren't going to take that into consideration or look at it?
that would be operational, Counselor Twill, when they're determining what roads in the city and what infrastructure is in need of replacement. It wouldn't be up to us as councillors to determine what roads need to be done.
Based on the
Based on
criteria?
what the presentation we received last month with Mr. Adams, who explained how they determine the streets and what infrastructure needs repair first. But you can correct me if I'm wrong in my,
No, you're correct. And we also made the commitment at the last meeting as well that we would review that process and talk about it later this fall before going into next budget season. Just right now to do an evaluation and some, adjustments to those calculations is just not feasible with the resources we have at the moment.
yeah.
Yeah, so we did discuss it. We did discuss it, and we said we would explore it later.
I think we're gonna look at the process of assessing our streets, but I still don't think it's gonna, I don't think, and maybe it is that I missed that, if it's gonna be determined on wards, but I don't think so, but we can hear what comes back to
Well,
the
re-
committee
re-
in the fall.
The reason why it was discussed, Chair, because some wards seem to have much better streets and sidewalks than other wards, right? That's been going on for years.
And that's why, Mr. Counselor Twill, we're really glad that we have new MGAs, new policies, new procedures, and a new chair of Public Works who's going to
Yeah.
make sure we follow our process that's in place and we do things the right way.
But you know what? That process was in place for the last 20 years. Worse first, but somehow, some wards seem to have better streets and better sidewalks. So with that so-called criteria in place, it didn't seem to work. It seemed to be a slow process for some of the neighborhoods and communities to get their streets paved, and we're way, way behind. So that's why the suggestion was made that we have progress in every ward so that some of these other wards and neighborhoods can get caught up.
Right, okay.
Because
So we're,
that system was already in place, and
Okay.
it didn't work.
well, hopefully with our new criteria, we're going to bring that up in the fall, but we're going to move now and.
Just, Madam Chair, just through you to the engineer. Like, this is a good news item. We're adding an additional 1.2 million to do more streets. It's a good news item. You know, that's what we should be celebrating, is that we're doing something other than when we do it around election year. This is being done in our first year. Like, this is where we want to go, is we want to speed up redoing streets, resurfacing streets. If we keep going the way we are going, we'll be 30 years, and then we'll start back all over again. Mr. Adams has found maybe 800,000 plus to add on to the 400,000 to do more streets for the citizens of all the city.
And there's
And
some,
that's-
it is spread out when you look at them.
Yeah,
It looks
and-
pretty good.
And I
so.
think, and I want to thank the chief engineer and his office for finding where he could take other monies or funding so that we could do this third tender. So.
So we need
kudos-
someone to move, or do we need a resolution to,
Kudos
as
to
a
the-
committee, or is it just
I'll move
an
it.
approval? Just direction? To target?
Oh, sorry. That'd be the amount that we aim to target, and we'll process the tender and bring it back to committee for the approval process. And then part of, again, as I mentioned, part of the resolution will
Okay.
include that shifting of money from one account to another like we typically do.
Well, if we're not using it there, we might as well use it to keep being progressive. Okay, is everybody on this committee in favor of that? Counselor Twill, yes? Everybody? Perfect, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Update on the Lilac Avenue and Cedar Avenue active transportation trail. So before we get into to discussion, I know that Scott's going to update us on some feedback around letters were delivered to every resident along Cedar Avenue, Lilac Avenue, people that would be affected by this active transportation trail. And Scott, I'm going to let you update committee with where we're at with that.
For sure. Thank you, Chair. So, so we hand-delivered a letter to each of the residences on these sections of street where we were proposing this work. In total, we received 10 submissions, and they essentially, there's a breakdown there, 8 residents from Cedar, 2 from Lilac, and that represents about 17% of the people who live on Lilac and 25% of the people that lived on Cedar. It wasn't, we didn't get a lot of support for it. The people that were not in favor were quite outspoken about it. So what and you can read the bullet points as some of the concerns that we had. So we thought, we could always look at maybe, maybe we, as part of our reevaluation of our 5-year plan coming up this year, later this year, we thought it'd be best, because there's a lot of concern from the resident, maybe it's best we take a step back, we pause these sections of multi-use pathways for this year, and then as part of the reevaluation, which we aim to do sometime in the fall, to add additional years to our plan, we could talk about that then and how we want to move forward with multi-use pathways in and around residential areas.
$1 million that will be deferred for this year. And I know that you indicated some of our projects that we've already approved, we're running a little over budget. So I'm assuming we'll be able to use some of that money to pay for that. But also, will
That's
there be
correct.
any room to move down our master plan in any other projects, or are we going to have to?
We would have to look at that a little closer. As of right now, we're recommending, these funds will be used to supplement the other tenders that have come in to
Okay.
date that just closed, and you'll see we'll talk about that here at the end of the report. And if there are funds available left over afterwards, the challenge is I have to figure out
Design.
what's designed.
Yeah.
There are a few projects that are designed that we could get ready to go. I just don't know which ones those are and how big they are too. That's the other factor.
Okay.
And just another note on our 5-year plan, we're going to have to reevaluate the costing over the past. So this got brought in, I want to say 2019, 2020. And since then, with COVID and everything, prices have skyrocketed. It's unbelievable the price to do work now for
Okay.
installing. So that would be another factor, part of our 5-year plan discussion later
Well, you're
this
coming
fall.
back anyway with added
Correct.
areas, so maybe at that time we can look at.
Exactly.
You know,
That's,
and you're
we'll,
saying
we'll
you're,
bring all that information, and we're aiming right around just before budget season.
Yeah.
It's a good time to be talking about that stuff.
okay.
Just on that, Mr. Adams, as Councilor McAleer knows, that we do have many areas that are looking for active transportation pathways. I can tell you that if you go out to Lewis Point Park, you go out to Orchard Hill Park, they are looking for something. So I would ask if you're doing more studies or more investigation, please look into those outlying areas because
Yep.
they're in desperate need.
Absolutely.
And I know they want
Yep.
that kind of a system in place. So
Yep.
where there's a want, where there's a need,
For sure.
Let's try to fill it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam
And that
Chair.
will be coming back anyway. He'll come back. So I guess,
Chair? Yes. I also, Scott, want you to look at Mount Edward Road on the west side for active transportation pathway, all the ways up. You know, you can start at the bypass, you start with Towers Road, all the ways down to Belvedere Avenue. It's very, very dangerous. You know, I've made requests to you in previous years for sidewalks and there's, there's no crosswalks. I have a young family living on the other side, on the west side of Mount Edward Road, young children, they can't get across the street to get to Pine Drive, to get down to Sherwood Elementary School. So the sooner we have active transportation pathway on that side, so the residents feel safe, because it's not safe at all.
okay, take it for consideration.
Again,
still- let's
Councillor
stay-
Councillor McAleer will attest to the fact that out in Lewis Point Park and Orchard Hill Park, there are no sidewalks.
Okay. We're
Mount
not
Edward
talking
Road, there
about
is a
this, though,
sidewalk
right
on
now
the east
again.
side.
Not the west
Stay on-
side.
Yep,
East
but
side.
we're going to
Thank
stay
you.
on
That's
track.
right.
We're talking about Lilac and Cedar, and we are going to have a report that will come back from management with an up-to-date master sidewalk plan. Not tonight, but thank you for your great input. I'm sure everybody outside and inside has heard the
Madam Chair, just
recommendation.
to be
Yes.
clear, like on Councillor Tweel's point, like with Mount Edward Road and the pathways, and I agree with that. But as I understand it, Councillor Tweel, and I'm not sure, I'm understanding from with the plans that are in place, like there's probably some infrastructure that has to happen first before the pathways and sidewalks would follow. Or am I right or wrong on that?
So I'll go very quickly on Mount Edward Road. So Mount Edward Road is likely next year we're going to trigger a major traffic study on it. It hasn't been done for a long time. It did get included with the Western Royalty one, but in terms of what I can talk about, master traffic plan is how we're going to expand it, if it needs to be expanded, and we're going to look at the whole corridor, because with the West Royalty one, we only went down to Towers Road. So we need to go all the way down, because it is a major connection between the northern part of the city and the southern part of the city.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we're doing North River Road right now. We're doing a study on that, how to evaluate it. The challenges that we've been faced with the city is we're all of a sudden faced with all these issues, and we need to correct. Well, we could have been planning 10 years beforehand how to fix them, or forecasting those issues. So we're trying to get ahead of the game and have a better idea of how to better handle future traffic and growth in the city, because it's coming. Growth is coming. We know it is. More development's happening every day, and we have to manage how to move those people around the city.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask if someone would put on the floor the recommendation to move to council that we're going to defer these two. Do we need to do that, Scott?
You
Just
don't.
Information, we'll provide
We
information.
can provide
Okay.
information, yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Everybody's in agreement then and comfortable with that.
Again, Madam Chair, the focus, we need to focus more on ATVs instead of sidewalks, but again, where you have a infrastructure there, whereas one side is already accommodating, whether it's an ATV or a sidewalk, we have to look at those areas that out in West Road, like Orchard Hill Park, Lewis Point Park, that have no infrastructure.
Thank you. And
Thank
yep, noted, duly noted. Okay, into subsection D, we're looking at an easement for City Hall alleyway. Scott?
Correct. So this is a matter, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a matter that came up during the BDO report. So there's a portion of private right-of-way, so everyone's familiar with the optical place behind City Hall here. A portion of the land extends beyond City Hall. It's a very odd little shaped parcel. But essentially, if you're parking behind City Hall to get out onto Kent Street, you have to drive over their parcel of land. So way back in the day, when this was identified, the council and mayor at the time made a deal with the owner that for us to use that parcel of land to drive to access the alleyway and our parking lot, that since we already have snow clearing gear in behind City Hall, and the fact it's one swipe of our loader to clean up the snow in their parking spots, that would be the agreement. We would get to use their property for access. we would deal with the cleanup of the snow out of the parking stalls. And it's been like that forever and a day that I'm aware of. Excuse me. And it was flagged during the BDO report that there was no formal agreement. And so here in front of you is the draft agreement that we're recommending to take to council for final approval. And so the CAO and mayor can sign off to this agreement.
Thank you, and good job. We spent a lot of money on the BDO report. It's nice to see that we're taking information from that and putting it into what we're supposed to. So now I need someone to move that we will accept this agreement, okay? And seconded by Councillor Twill. You good with seconding that? Okay, everybody in favor to move this to council? Yes. Great, thank you very much. E-bike share program, RFP. Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this was presented to our committee last year before the election. Election happened. A lot of things took place, a lot on the go, and we just weren't able to reissue it. Before we went out to RFP for this again, we wanted to bring this back to our committee just so it's fresh in your memory of what we're trying to achieve with this. So we've been batting this idea around for a couple years now on if the city would invest in an electric or an e-bike or pedal assist bike share program. So you see a lot of major cities have these programs around. And essentially how they work, there's a number of bike racks in strategic locations around the city. The bike is locked in it. An individual comes up, can unlock it using an app, and you get charged per hour or every half hour, however the system's set up, to use that bike. And for your clock to stop, you have to put it back on a bike rack. So that's one thing that's great. They don't get dropped anywhere. They have to be dropped and put in a bike racks, so you don't get charged anymore for them. And it helps. It just helps keep bikes from ending up in places you don't want them to end up in. Excuse me. We have been working behind the scenes with talking with a number of organizations and partners that we hope to partner with on this one. We've talked to the province, and they are showing a very strong interest in this program as part of their AT funding. So we have we'll be reapplying for that one. We've talked to Stratford. Stratford has shown interest in having 1 or 2 stations on their side of the bridge. We've talked with Holland College, who is also interested in the program, and discussions are ongoing with UPEI as well. So we're looking at a number of partners, and as it goes on, this program can expand, and you can add more stations around the city. So what we're going out is going out for requests for proposals and seeing what type of systems are out there and can be put in place. Excuse me. And so there's no commitment at the city level to have to do this, but we want to have those proposals, bring them back, and provide you folks with a recommendation on how to move forward with this program, because we think this is the way of the future. I think there's going to be a strong use of these, especially during the summer months with tourism and such, and just even I can see individuals going from potentially meeting one side of downtown to the other side of downtown. Instead of trying to find parking, you hop on a bike and go across town. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and you see a lot of uptake in other cities, and I think we would be able to see the same in our city.
And it's great. And I'm looking at, we've had a lot of feedback on the scooter rentals with no helmets. And I see in the report that they talk about helmets and, they're going to be required to wear a helmet, and that City Hall is going to rent the helmets and stuff. So there'd have to be some planning and stuff, because I'm not sure which department would be responsible for renting. But the minute we become involved with these bikes and stuff, we want to make sure that we have the liability.
And I can elaborate on
Perfect.
that one a little bit. So part of the app, there's a lot. They have to sign a waiver stating that they would do all those things. But then we also have to provide an avenue for folks who are out of town or don't have a helmet to rent them. There's a couple models that we've looked at, and there's kind of 3 that we kind of looked at, and one is the best of the 3. The first one was essentially just attaching a helmet with each bike. I forget what community out west did that. I think every bike helmet went missing within a week. It just doesn't work. There's also, with COVID just happening, how do you keep them clean is also another one. The second one is a bike helmet locker at each station. Very expensive it can be. And again, the cleanliness is a big factor on how you do that one. So the third one would be looking at partners around the city that would essentially house the helmets and maintain them. So I'm looking at things like, here at City Hall, we could have, they come into the tourism center and the shelf is right there, and the individual working at tourism is responsible for renting them out. However we do that. Like the tourism kiosk down at Founders Hall could be another great spot. So we'll be looking at, again, we got some time before we want to roll this out. We will be looking at an April 1st start date of next year before we even start construction, because it's not in the budget yet. So we'd be looking forward to add it to the next year's budget. So we have some time to finalize those details as well. But that would be our model that we're aiming to go to, is finding partners that there's physically someone there to rent them from, and make sure they're clean and not broken, and all that, those types
And maybe
of
they
things.
could unlock the bike with a code from the helmet or something to ensure that they're using them. Because I know that the expectation when these scooters are being used is that people are wearing a helmet, but they're not.
Yeah,
My
and that's
daughter included.
unfortunately an enforcement issue. That's what it comes down to. It's truly an enforcement issue. People that own their own bikes around town, it seems like it's getting worse and worse. The number of people who aren't wearing helmets, it's growing. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it is I'm not sure what the corrective action is to fix this, but it is a growing issue.
Oh, if people would follow the rules, it would be great. Is there any other questions? This is exciting. I'll look forward to it. Okay, Councillor Tweel?
Yeah, well, Scott, I think you raised a good point with respect to helmets. I'd like to suggest maybe hiring someone to create that awareness and education program. And I got the perfect gentleman in mind to work with, Public Works, probably police, environment sustainability, who's dedicated his whole life to, helmet safety. So I can talk to you about the individual afterwards. But I really think we need to launch an aggressive campaign when it comes to awareness and education. Enforcement, yeah, but I think we've regressed. We've gone further behind. There's no one wearing helmets.
I know.
And I think we need someone to be an ambassador for the city of Charlottetown, and he can speak from his own experience. He's willing to offer his services, and I think we need to have someone of his caliber and credibility.
I think that would be something, Councillor Tweel, that, again, if that's something we look at as a city that would go through the process of HR, that we could look at whether we feel that's part of the
And just
e-rental bike.
One thing on the helmets. So so we talked to police, and it would be a policing. They'd be the ones that would have to chair that campaign. And we've talked to them, and it should be a provincial matter that we can sponsor and promote
Well,
with them.
I just think
but it's
we-
a provincial wide issue that I think the chief of police has shown interest in working with the province.
Yeah,
and trying to work that
I
out.
think we have a responsibility here from a city perspective, Scott.
There'll be more discussion. This is coming, it's just a FYI. Yes, Councillor McAleer?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and to the manager, Scott. Just, I know it's early, Scott, in this vision. That I think it's it's a great idea. Just I don't have any knowledge or comparatives, but I've just looking at the broad number, 610,000. The ongoing maintenance costs, 220,000. Like I said, that seems like a big figure. Is it? I'm just wondering, like, once these things are up and running, it seems like a fairly significant maintenance cost. Does that jump out at you, or is it?
Mic off. Perfect. Thank you. Yes, Councillor. So the numbers, what they reflect on too is that is if we hired someone, and likely for the first 5 years, we would at minimum want to hire a third-party company to manage manage that, because there are a lot of responsibilities with that. It's quite we want to make sure it gets off the ground running and is successful. And part of what's built into those costs, those are just rough ballpark based on what we're seeing elsewhere. And it could be less for us. It could be greater. It just depends on wear and tear, damage, how much use they get. There's a lot of There are a lot of factors that go into that. So we're not alarmed right at the moment with knowing that there is a mechanism to recoup funds, right? It's not going to be a free service. It's going to be a paid service as well. So a lot of those funds will be recouped through the rental of the of it. We'd like to be, at the end of the day, we don't want to make money off it, but we think it's a great service that we can offer to residents, visitors alike, and it should be a cost-neutral venture for the city.
And possible, I know it says here, province may be or maybe part of 50% of the initial cost, but would it be possible to tie them into the maintenance piece potentially?
So that'd be for the Active Transportation Fund, and their funding is only for capital. So ongoing operation is a municipal thing. And again, those costs would be recouped. We would aim to recoup those through the rental fees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We'll look forward to the next presentation.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to clarify what he's proposing. I know it's an RFP. He's going out to a request for proposals. But Scott, just getting back from Toronto for the FCM, I don't know how you police the helmets. It's the same in Montreal. We tried it with the scooters. The scooter operator left helmets on the scooters. They went missing. So we can have police officers going up and down the road, pulling people over without a helmet. But I think that this venture is a great idea. But in other jurisdictions, is it the city that initiates the rental and then provides those rentals? Or is it something similar to what our scooter operator's doing? He provides the service. He does the.
We're
or
seeing
she.
mix. We're
What's
seeing
that?
a mixed use. Sometimes they're privately operated ventures, and then we're seeing government funded, like city owned, but maintained by a private operation. So you're seeing there's many models out there on it. And again, I think Councillor Twill's right. I think this is a bigger matter that needs to be discussed further outside of this. This is just for the infrastructure and the bikes. But I think it's a bigger discussion with provincial and all other partners, because we can't be the only one messaging the bike helmet thing when when other people that are coming to our community from neighboring communities aren't wearing their helmets either. We need everyone on board.
But just in the RFP, Madam Chair, it's that I think that our RFP should look at the possibility of inviting private operators, similar to what is going on with our scooter operator, to provide that service and to maintain it, and that a service is available for visitors, for residents, and also about pushing residents, visitors to use other forms of transportation to reduce our to reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a comment, Madam Chair. And I know it's not related to bikes, but the scooter thing. I mean, I don't know where where liability for that may lie, but I mean, I was going down one-way street yesterday, and there's 3 young people going up the wrong way, like just giving her these things. This scooter thing is going to blow up, and somebody's going to get seriously hurt or worse, killed on these roads. Anyway, with the scooter thing, but that's.
Wait, that's not a city program, though, is it? Is this the scooters? No. It's a private operator. Yeah. Well, hopefully he's listening. So, I mean, I think that the RFP is just to go out and hear for proposals, so there's no decisions made today anyway, and there'll be lots of questions asked and lots of things that have to be considered before we'd ever want to jump in on that. So, more information to come. Another ask on Scott. We're looking at the unsightly property cleanup. We know we have one bylaw officer that we could probably use 5 right about now who's out determining properties that would fall under unsightly and dangerous premises, and then our public works staff are diligently going around and cleaning up properties. So I think, Scott, you want to put a little ask in to committee?
Certainly. So, yes, as Madam Chair mentioned, the workload, as everyone's aware, the number of unsightlies are growing. and it's repeat offenders. So now with the, you may jump in if I'm wrong here, but now the way it's written, it doesn't have to come back to council once it's been approved, and the grass keeps growing or whatever, we can keep, the bylaw officer says it needs to be done, then he notifies Joey or our staff that, okay, we got to return. Well, this is just, it's not a core service, so it's not something that we budget for, nor do we, have dedicated crews for this. This is done when a crew has some time off or in between smaller jobs. And it has just grown so much that it is putting a huge pressure on our team to manage these requests. And not to mention, this year is just an anomaly with the amount of damage that we have this spring from, we're still cleaning up from Fiona, of course. And we had a lot of plow damage this year, and just because there was no frost in the ground. So it's just an abnormal year. So what we're looking at is, because it's an unsightly, I guess I should go back. The other big issue we're seeing now is more requests for garbage pickup around private properties. There is a big concern. We don't have the equipment to safely and properly dispose of the garbage. There's always the concern of hazardous items in some. If we were to remove bags and things from these dumpsters or blue bin or green bins or black bins, there's hazardous items in there, whether it's needles or bloodied rags, things like that are very dangerous to our staff. And our staff, we're very concerned about that. We're already asking them to do quite a bit in terms of needle pickup and such. To add this huge safety concern, they've raised the alarm bells too. They're really concerned about picking up garbage or transporting these garbage bins when we don't have the proper equipment to do it. So what we're recommending is looking at adding an additional line item in our operational budget that allows us to contract out some of these services, whether it's garbage pickup or lawn mowing, when we don't have the available forces to do such work. Again, it's a new request, $30,000, that we think that should be okay to get us through this year, hopefully. Just keep in mind that these funds are able to be recouped through either an invoice that's sent to the property owner if they pay, or there's liens that get put on properties and we recoup those funds when the property is sold. So at the end of the day, hopefully it is cost neutral, but we're not sure when those funds would be recouped by the city. But yes, that's my kind of pitch for this.
And we know garbage is a huge problem, and I know it's been to the floor at the legislature, and I know that we're trying to collaborate and work with province to kind of come up with better planning on how we're going to deal with some of these issues, but we still have to deal with them while we wait for those processes to be put in place. And it's a huge issue throughout the city. I'd be interested at some point to make sure and find out what we do actually recoup from the amount of times we're going out, or making sure that these are put in lien and people are required. But thank you for your report, Scott. Yes, Councillor McAleer.
No, to your point, I've asked the same question. It'd be nice to understand when those, you say we have the power to, with the lien, but, I understand from asking a few questions that it's not easy to find out where we stand with those, what I would kind of almost refer to as accounts receivable for work that's done for that sort of thing. I understand because it goes to the province and it's a legal thing, so it's not easy for us to find out. If those things are paid or not, or where that stands. So it'd be nice to get clarity around something like that.
Thank you. Is there any other questions around the $30,000 ask?
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to clarify, so you're going to contract it out? So right now, when there is a cleanup to be done, we send staff to do that cleanup, correct?
That's
and
correct.
What you're
That's
asking is
typically,
that you want private contractors to go do it.
to be able to have that option. So like right now, we're being asked to even pick up green bins and black bins because they're not sorted. We don't even have the equipment to lift those bins safely.
But that's IWMC's responsibility.
Not so if you as a homeowner do not sort your bin and
Right.
you get flagged as a bin, then you're responsible for sorting that. Well, these owners are not sorting their bins, and nor do they ever take after it, so it just piles up. And then it becomes an unsightly, and then it ends up on council floor for Public Works manager.
Well, I
go
would
clean
like
up.
to go back to what the chair of this committee is trying to do. She's trying to get a meeting with the minister responsible for IWMC, who I believe is Ernie Hudson, and also the CAO or CEO of IWMC. We pay $210 a year for IWMC pickup. That doesn't come to the city. So I would like
But
to
the way
defer-
it is right now, your worship, is those are the rules, and their obligation, they refuse to pick up unsorted garbage. And most of these issues are in big apartment buildings.
Right.
And I think we need to, that's where the discussion is. You know, if you have an apartment building maybe with over 4 units in it, it's really hard to manage whose garbage is what. So we need to look at a bigger picture here and how we're going to solve this problem. Whether apartment building pay more for their garbage, like I know it comes through taxes, I know it's a province thing. But regardless, we have to do something in the interim because they're saying, and it's nobody's fault, it's just the way it is, right? Waste Watch doesn't pick up unsorted garbage, then it builds up, and then we have issues, major issues. And then,
But we're doing a service that we're not responsible for. We got out of this back in 1994 when IWMC took over
then we
provincial.
need to get rid of the unsightly bylaw, because if the minute this happens and all this stuff is piling up, then it's unsightly, and then it goes in, and then our Todd makes the referral to Public Works goes in and cleans up the property, right?
So I'm trying to find out how many, in a week, in a month, how many properties are we cleaning up?
I had 5 calls from my
No, but I'm
along.
just asking the engineer.
Madam Chair, it varies from week to week, but it wouldn't be out of the number to say we'd have 10 calls a week for garbage.
To pick up.
Not just our bylaw enforcements. And what we're seeing is now that it's everywhere. And I sent some pictures to the chair the other day. And we have to go in and clean it because we're gonna have rodents or someone
Yeah.
has to clean it. And it's a disgrace, a mess. So we go in and clean it, but what we're finding is 4 or 5 days later, the mess is bigger because now, why would I sort? I just throw it out there, someone's coming to pick it up.
Well, we experienced that back when we did the spring cleanup and the fall cleanup back in the early 90s. We'd clean up an area, and then in weeks later, it's back to lots of, actually more waste. So again, this is an IWMC issue. I think we're taking on a responsibility and then paying for it. And then, as Mr. Adams stated, in order to go to retrieve that money, we have to get a resolution of council passed. There has to be a resolution passed by council, so then we can go to court. Like, we don't have a summary offense ticketing system in place. Like, I think we're going down a slippery slope here, Madam Chair, and I'll support it, but we have to get IWMC at the table, along with the minister responsible for this agency or this corporation, to say, hey, we're paying the cost and you're collecting the money every year. I think it's up to $210 a year for IWMC fee.
And it's not, another added thing to it is when we are getting these extra calls over and over again, we don't have designated crews like the manager spoke of. We are pulling crews away from jobs that they're already on, which are delaying jobs getting finished, and then, as you know, the phone
Yeah,
rings.
I think, Madam Chair, you better be ready to add more, because as you clean up, you're going to clean up more, and you're going to clean up more. That's what's going to happen. This is going back to the old days when we did the spring cleanup and the fall cleanup. Every time we did it, you'd be back and it'd be 10 feet higher. So,
Well, right now, we're working on unsightly property list, I believe. That
Yeah.
was kind of the last meeting, so we're going to have ideas. With the garbage issue, I believe there is a meeting scheduled for, is it the 23rd of June? The 20,
Yeah, I
with
believe 23rd,
staff?
26th, one of those days. That's
okay,
correct,
and
yeah.
it'll be yourself, our CAO, and then staff from Island Waste Watch. And also, above that, it's already been brought to the floor in the legislature, so they're quite aware. So I think there even has to be a bigger meeting on the umbrella side.
but Madam Chair, IWMC is a Crown corporation. They have a board of directors, they have a CEO, so we have to that's where we have to go. And I believe there are 4 deputies that sit on that board. So those deputies are representing different departments like environment, sustainability, transportation, so forth. Guys, like, I've seen this before, and we were spending almost $1 million a year collecting garbage or collecting waste. Then we get out of it, and now we're slowly getting back into it more and more.
So the pressure has to go on the right and the provincial government and the
And
IWMC
yeah.
to improve this, because we're dealing with consequences like we are with
And
a
this
lot of
is-
other things.
This is just the bridge to get us to that point. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, we know it's an issue, and if we don't get it cleaned up, then it's a neighborhood issue, and then it's a safety issue that gets out into the public right away. So
Yeah, our staff's not equipped to deal with
And
that.
Madam Chair, if I could just make one suggestion, we should be accounting for every pickup and the cost it has been to us. Now that we're going with a private contractor, we're going to get an invoice, which we'll be able to tabulate to say, okay, here's what we paid out so far. Who is going to pay for this? And they're going to say, well, you've taken on the responsibility. So
So under our bylaw, so when the resolution hits the floor and gets approved at council, that the manager of public works is authorized to clean up a property, doesn't matter what type of cleanup, could be mowing, could be dumps, or garbage waste disposal. So, excuse me, all the hours are tallied. Our staff create a spreadsheet. It's an invoice that gets sent to finance, and finance produces an actual invoice from the city to the home property owner. So it could include the tippage fees, could include our wages, and equipment use. All those, so it is tracked, and it is anything that's done through those resolutions is tracked and accounted for.
I've never seen one, but I'm looking forward to seeing those through finance. Councillor John McAleer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Nobody's talking about the owners of these properties. So these properties are owned by landlords, and I'm thinking there's got to be some ownership taken on behalf of the owners of these properties, landlords, to police this sort of thing, and it's a condition of your rent. If your garbage not shorted, that's anyway. That I think should be shouldn't escape us either in terms of. Anyway, just a point.
There's work to be done, but I think, is everybody in agreement that we'll at least until we can get this meeting at the end of June, and it's going to take a little while from that meeting for the CAO to be able to work her magic, that we ask council for an increase in 30,000 operational to make sure that this stuff doesn't get, okay?
And just an add on to that, Madam Chair, could we ask finance to actually provide a receivables collected on
Absolutely.
these pickups and these orders that were issued by council? How many were actually paid? I'd like to see the receivables on.
Yeah, I think
what's been
that's a
paid.
good information for them to have even going to the meeting to show that we're
Yeah.
doing their job for probably not near what it's worth. Councillor McAleer, make note of that we're going to ask that in finance. All right, moving on to the capital updates project. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's for information only. If anyone had any questions, then you can ask.
Just quickly,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair. On the capital projects, I noticed that we have not started the Fitzroy Street old-fashioned, the heritage lights from Rochford to Terry Fox. I'm also looking at the completion of the Fitzroy Parkade facade. That's been ongoing now for the last, 9 months?
Yeah.
And it seems that they go out there with a hydrolift or a hydraulic lift, stay there for a couple of days. I'd like to know what's going on with that.
Certainly.
And the other issue is, I have it here, is the issue with the Queen Street Parkade. Is there an update on that, on engineering services that we're going to contract out, or where are we at? So those 3 projects, can I just get updates on those, please?
Certainly. So I'll do the Fitzroy the Parkade, Fitzroy Parkade first. So it's just stained glass. It's on back order.
Okay.
Still waiting for that. Everything else is like the cedar, all that's up, and the steel frames up. It's solely the glass. So I don't have an update on when that's coming. But
Any
that's the last
lighting?
piece.
Is there any lighting that?
No, lighting's the next, another phase on that. The lighting was not included in this phase of the project. The Fitzroy Street lights, tender, or 99% tender documents and drawings I received a few weeks ago. We're just trying to get through them to finalize them and be tendered out. Hope to have that done in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
And then the Queen Street Parkade, we're almost ready to go out to RFP. There's a couple things left to look at, and one meeting to be had. Once that's all done, we'll be going out. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks, there'll be more news on that fact.
And thank you, Madam Chair. I know it's in the list. I just want to be on the public record.
Of course you do. I'm going to actually, I should have read further ahead into the tender to see who you were approving to tender. I'm going to remove myself. Councillor Tweel's going to sit here to move the next item. You have to leave, your worship. Enjoy the Mayor's Congress. So I'm going to let Councillor Tweel sit here. My brother-in-law is part of the management of the company that you're recommending, so anything
So
that has
do we
to
have
do.
quorum now with the mayor leaving?
Oh, dear.
No, we don't. We can't approve it.
Just a second, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see if you can come back. I'm going to let you just come and you can do it right from your table because it's just one, and I'll come back after this to close our meeting.
The resolution, she's in conflict of with the bidder. I'll go through this fairly quickly. So yes, we went out to tender for Irwin, Westridge, Cedar, I should say Irwin and Westridge is part of this one. We received 2 bidders, and we're recommending to award to the low bid of Earthform Corporation for $1,535,125 plus all applicable taxes. Please note that we did not budget nearly enough for either of these projects, and the prices are just astronomical. It's shocking the price that things have been going up year over year. So something that we're going to take a really close look at when we go to rebudget our next 5-year plan, to see where the prices are going up and how we can try to bring them down, change the design standards or things like that. But as of right now, we're recommending to move with both these projects and hopefully start construction in the near future.
Okay, floor is open. Any questions?
I move it.
Second? Motion carried. Thank you. Julie?
Is that the only one? Is that the only one?
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. Thank you, Your
Thank you.
Worship, for coming back for that. All right, so we've already kind of did our new business. Is there anything that we would like added to our next month's agenda at this time?
To the speed bumps, just the whole policy, just the, I guess, high-level look at just the whole program.
Sure, we'll add speed bump policy and location placement at the next meeting. Anything else we'd like added?
The potential sidewalk on the north side of Allen Street from Mr. Plummer to St. Peter's Road.
Okay, I know, Councillor Tweel, and we can bring that up, but I know that we are going to be looking at the full master plan, sidewalk plan in the fall anyway, so it could be noted, and you could speak to Scott just to make sure that that's taken under consideration for when that report comes
There was supposed
back.
to be the previous CAO, not Mrs. Waddell, but the previous CAO was supposed to, through the manager, they were supposed to do up some kind of a design. I don't know if the design ever got done. No design?
No, we never completed design. up to
Okay,
this date,
well,
no.
anyway, he indicated to me there was going to be a design, but nonetheless, that's a very serious issue there, and it's very dangerous for the seniors.
Okay,
that live,
thank you.
With all the people there, so I'd like to pursue that.
Okay. if you could take that area under consideration again, Scott, when you're looking at your master plan work. Okay, so if there's anything else, I think, you could email Scott and include Kelsey so that they know if there's anything with being respectful for enough time for them to be able to prepare a response to anything. And again, unfortunately today, we got a little out of control in the chamber during our committee meeting, but we're going to work really hard at being a little bit more respectful and a little bit more on to task.
I agree. You know what, Chair? I agree with you. Respect's a two-way street. So you know what?
You
If
know
you want
what?
it, you got to give it.
Okay, well, I feel like I'm giving as much respect as
No,
I
this has
as I
nothing to
can.
do with, Chair,
Yeah, but
nothing to
I'm
do
the
with,
chair.
I'm not talking about you.
No, I know.
All right, right?
But I'm the
But I'll tell
chair.
you one thing, I'm not going to sit by
Okay.
and
Well,
take
maybe
have
we'll
cheap
work
shots
through
taken
some of
by anyone.
those issues
I don't care if it's the
outside
mayor
of
of
the
the city or
chamber.
who it is.
Bend
I
it.
could care less.
Okay. So right now, we're going to now move into the next part, which is the adjournment of our public session, and maybe we can continue these conversations. So I need someone to put a motion to adjourn, second the adjournment. I'm guessing we're in favor. Have a wonderful evening.